Hello, hello, everyone. I am Alicia Renee, and welcome to She Exudes Now. I'm so excited to have you guys today and to introduce my guests. Um, we have some amazing guests today that are going to talk to us about healthy living. In fact, their title of their program is called the Daniel's Fast. The Daniel's Fast, a bridge to healthy living. So I am excited to learn more about this, and I hope that you all are as well. So I am going to bring my guests to the stage today. We have Miss Gigi Carter and Miss Sersie Blue. So everyone, say hi.
Hey,
Everyone,
everybody.
pleasure to be here.
All right, ladies. Well, thank you all so much for participating. I really appreciate your time and your energy to just share with the audience today. One thing that I always like to do is ask my guests a question about what they are exuding today. As we know that the show is called She Exudes Now, it's a tribute to my devotional called She Exudes. And so today I am exhibiting a little bit of excitement. I've got some things on the pipeline that I'm excited about and just kind of coming full circle on some things. So that's what I'm exuding today.
Awesome.
Awesome.
For me, I'm exuding, I guess, gratefulness. So I just came back from a vacation. I had some time to kind of slow down and reflect, and I'm just in a mode of grateful for all the things that are happening in my life.
All right,
Awesome.
great. I
Awesome.
love that.
Well, I guess I'm exuding a feeling of winning just for a couple reasons. When I got up this morning, we have a program called the Inner Circle. It's for people who graduate from our 4-week course. And I kind of lead a core workout. And one of the members in our group, I had a conversation with her after the workout, and she needed a little nudge to kind of get back into her exercise routine. So we had a really great conversation, and afterwards, she just hit it out of the park and just knocked out a full hour on her recumbent bike and posted it in our group. And so I just felt super accomplished, like I was winning, even though she was doing the work, but I helped play a role in nudging her. And then on top of that, I've been doing some much needed work around my house, some yard work. And so really made a good dent in that today. So I just feel like I'm
Mhm.
winning.
Yay, I love that. Yes, having a winning attitude, even
Yeah.
if it's not directly your win, but you coached her and so you
Yeah.
Yes.
motivated her. So that's awesome. Well, great. Thank you, ladies. So, as I mentioned earlier, we are talking about healthy living, specifically dealing with eating today. So, I want you guys to be able to share more about that and introduce yourselves as well. So, in no particular order, whoever wants to go first, I'll allow you to introduce yourself and just give us a little bit of background of what you do and how you came to be a part of this duo.
Yeah, I guess, Cersei, I'll just kick it off and then I'll let you do the hard part. All right. So, my name is Gigi Carter. I am a licensed nutritionist, certified personal trainer, and I co founded the Daniel Fast A Bridge to Healthy Living program, along with Healthy for My Purpose, with this beautiful lady with me, Cersei Blue. And we did this in part because primarily because we believe it is our mission to help women take control of their health. And we have for over 10 years now been in a place where we have cracked the code on things like obesity, on things like type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and other chronic diseases that a lot of people are struggling with today. And we just feel passionate about sharing that with other people and helping them crack the code as well. And so we designed some programs around that to help you.
Awesome. Thank you. And Miss Sersie, would you like to go next?
Yes. So my name is Sersie, and I'm a health coach, and I'm the co-founder with Gigi for Daniel Fassa Bridge to Healthy Living. And for us, our this program kind of birthed out of our own personal experience, which we'll probably talk a little bit about that as we get into the show. But Gigi and I actually met in the middle of COVID-19. And it was right around the time Gigi and I both were independently kind of doing things in the health and wellness space. And there was a new report that had just come out basically stating that those with comorbidities were at a higher risk for having complications with COVID and even having the serious outcome of death. And so we both were passionate about that because we felt like, and when we're talking about comorbidities, we're talking about obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, some of the common chronic health issues that plague a lot of people today. And we knew from our personal experience and also from the research and the science that is out there that we had the answer. And so we felt compelled, convicted. Um, I feel like it was a divine connection to come together to develop something to help people take charge of their health. And here we are, we're in the middle of a pandemic where people are feeling uncertain, we're living in all of that. And so we realized that, there was a whole population out there that was relying on their faith to get them through this season. And so we saw that there was gap industry of people who were faith minded and were using their faith to, overcome struggles in the pandemic, but also just to make decisions in their life when it comes to their marriage or their job or their family morals or whatever the case may be. And we saw that what about if we helped people connect using their faith to get healthy? And so that's how we developed the Daniel Fassa Bridge to Healthy Living, which the core principle is combining nutrition and using your superpower of faith to make those connections so you can have a strong why to make this thing sustainable long term. So that's pretty much how we kind of got started.
Wow. And I love that story. When you guys were telling me about it before, I thought it was just sort of like a divine connection, actually, that you guys were able to meet. It was during a pandemic. You hadn't physically met in person, and you were able to come together with core beliefs and, realizing that you had a phenomenal ideal that was available to people if they just only knew about it. So I love that, how it all just kind of came together for the good.
Yeah.
So speaking of the Daniel's fast, now I know many people have done the Daniel's fast, either through their church or other avenues. And really, when I've heard about it in the past, it has been something that's been done at the beginning of the year when people are trying to, detox and kind of, jumpstart any weight loss or just, cleanse themselves and, do some sort of fast, or even if it's not religious. So can you tell us more about the Daniel's fast? Because I know there are some individuals that have not heard about it before.
Sure. For those of you who don't know, Daniel fast is based in the Bible on the life of Daniel, who basically was brought into the king's palace to be educated and basically to basically serve in that arena. And they were basically feeding, Daniel and his friends. The king's diet was basically of, meats and wines and a lot of indulgent foods that not only were of that type, but they were also sacrificed to different idols. And so Daniel and his friends said, listen, we don't want to eat those foods because it kind of goes against their beliefs as Hebrew boys. And he was like, but if you just give us 10 days, let us eat our fruits, our vegetables, our, all the foods that come from the earth. And if we don't measure up in comparison to all of the other people, then we'll switch it. And it was a big deal because the person that was actually overseeing everything took a real leap of faith, because had this had gone wrong, he would have gotten in really big trouble. But anyway, so make a long story short, over those 10 days, what happened was amazing, because not only were they up to par, but they superseded their peers. They were stronger, they were healthier, they were physically more fit. And so people now use that concept now in the church to kind of use it as a template to say, let's eat like Daniel, which is basically a whole food, plant-based diet. There's no dairy, no processed foods, no meat, no cheese, and eat like that for 21 to 30 days, of the year. And like Alicia said, it's basically, people do it for different reasons. It's just a reset, or to, get off of all the Christmas food or whatever. And so that's pretty much the background of what the Daniel fast is. It's basically a whole food plant-based diet without any preservatives or anything. So you're basically eating the food in its most natural state. So instead of having like, you might make some kind of, apple fruit roll or something, you'll just eat the apple. So you're trying to get it in its most closest state to its whole food, unprocessed and things like that.
Great. Thank you for sharing that, because that was one of the questions that I had, was trying to draw similarities between the vegan diet that is popular today and the Daniel's fast as well. And then, those that maybe just choose to maybe eat more kosher foods, trying to avoid processed foods. So would you say the Daniel's fast is similar? Are there any differences to those types of diets?
Yeah, there are differences between the different diets. So a vegan diet means that it's devoid of all animal products. And a vegan diet can include processed foods. So things like, Impossible burgers or Beyond Meat burgers, or what they call faux meats and cheeses, like, plant-based cheeses. Those are all kind of considered processed food, but it's vegan. And what we're talking about is whole food plant-based, which is vegan, but it's basically, I would say, a healthier form of vegan, because it's unprocessed or minimally processed. So we do include things like, for example, canned beans with, no sodium added or low sodium, because it's basically just beans and water for the most part. But we don't include things like, processed cheeses, like, cashew, packaged cashew or coconut cheeses that you might find in your grocery store. We do have recipes for plant-based cheese sauces that are made with whole plant foods, but they're not like store-bought items. So there's definitely a distinction. But the only thing that they do have in that's similar is that they're both devoid of animal products. So Daniel Fast, the Daniel Fast menu is whole food, plant-based, and vegan. A vegan diet isn't necessarily always going to be whole food, plant-based. It will be plant-based, but it might be processed plant-based. So that's really kind of a distinction. And so what we've done with the Daniel Fast is we've kind of flipped the script with it. And so we have basically, our program is around the Daniel Fast, but using it as a jumping off point for a long-term sustainable, healthy lifestyle. So we don't just do it for, 3 weeks or 4 weeks and then kind of say, okay, let's go back to what we were eating before. The idea is that you use it as a jumping off point to then transition into a sustainable, whole food, plant-based nutrition plan. So.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that. So
Mhm.
you mentioned, being more focused on avoiding animal products and unprocessed foods. What are some of the adverse effects that you guys are aware of, either in your personal life or, just maybe scientific based, that you may see if you do consume some of those things?
Yeah, so I would say that, when you're talking about animal products, things like meat, for example, they contain a lot of pro-inflammatory substances in them. So a lot of times when people think about meat, they're thinking about protein. And but when, we don't really have a protein deficiency problem, especially in the United States, it's not an issue. The problem that we have are inflammatory chronic diseases like the ones that Sersie mentioned, that I mentioned, like obesity, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and certain cancers. And those diseases are brought on largely by lifestyle, which food plays a huge role. So some of the substances and things like meat include things like TMAO, trimethylamine oxide, which is where the carnitine in meat interacts with the gut bacteria to ultimately form TMAO in the body. And high levels of TMAO have been associated with heart attack, stroke, and death. It's also been implicated as a possible cause for prostate cancer, along with dairy. Things like heterocyclic amines and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons are another substance that's formed when meat is cooked at high temperatures of like 300 degrees and above, or smoked on a grill. This is kind of grilling season right now, and so the flames basically create this substance that has been shown to be mutagenic, so cancer causing. There's also, heme iron is another one that's been widely studied. And so this is basically the dietary form of iron found in animal products. The word heme means blood, so it's iron that's found from obviously blood, which is found in animals. And there's a host of other substances like advanced glycation end products and endotoxins and new 5GC. So you don't get these substances in whole plant foods. You only get them from consuming animal products, and they have been shown to be pro-inflammatory, and can harm your body. So what's unique about the Daniel fast and what we do is that you're simultaneously eliminating those foods in your diet, but you're adding foods, you're replacing those foods with healing restorative foods, foods that are high in antioxidants and things like phytochemicals, which are bioactive compounds found in plant foods. So the word phyto means plant. So plant chemicals that are beneficial to human health. So these are foods that have been shown to be anti-inflammatory, and restorative at a cellular and tissue level. So these are, again, foods that are found in whole plant foods. So you're not going to necessarily find high levels of antioxidants and phytochemicals and things like Impossible Burgers. And I'm not trying to knock Impossible Burgers. They're not promoting themselves as a health food, but I think sometimes people get confused by it. Impossible Burger, as an example, is out there to lower the environmental footprint of consuming beef, which is very destructive to our planet. And so they created a product to replace that, to make it more environmentally sustainable, which is great. But if you have a chronic illness, you're trying to lose weight, you're trying to reverse type 2 diabetes or heart disease, you're better off eating a black bean burger instead. So hope that helps.
It does. It does help. Thank you. So very interesting how you drew those comparisons, and thank you so much for the medical terminology and just kind of letting us know that there are some alternatives that are available. I'm assuming that if someone were to work with you all, that you would educate them on how you can replace, some of the nutrients that you may have received with more healthier options as well.
Right. Yes,
Okay. So let's talk a little bit. I guess we'll go back a little bit and talk about your particular experiences with, coming to this type of diet and lifestyle. What were some of the gripes or the complaints, the hardships, or what have been some of the joys? Because obviously it worked for you, and it was a world of difference from the life that you had before. So can you share that with us?
Yeah, sure. I'll kick it off only because Cersei's story is a great segue into talking more about our program. And so I'll kick it off and then I'll turn it over to Sersie, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay. All right. So my health journey started back in 2007. I was 35 years old at the time and I was diagnosed with high cholesterol. What happened was I went into my doctor for a routine wellness exam, and he did a carotid artery scan of my neck. So he looked at the carotid artery, which kind of connects my brain to my heart, very roughly. I mean, there's more to it than that. But what it does is the scan shows you how much plaque is forming in your arteries. So between a regular blood draw lipid panel, which showed that I had very high cholesterol, combined with this carotid artery scan, it showed that my arteries were that of a 46-year-old, even though I was only 35. So my arteries, my insides, my plumbing inside was aging a lot faster than my actual age. And he basically said, you're at risk of a heart attack or stroke, based on this data, based on where your levels are at in the scan. And he invited me. He didn't invite me. He was basically kind of telling me, I want to put you on a statin drug, a cholesterol lowering drug. And I was in shock. Like, I was like, I'm 35, I didn't know that, I just felt like I was too young to be going on to prescription drugs. I just thought that was something like, if like my grandparents, it's something they would be doing, not me. And so it was a wake-up call, and I knew I wasn't taking the best care of myself. I was eating out at a lot of restaurants. I wasn't necessarily eating fast food, but I was eating at restaurants and eating a lot of rich food. Things like, like I would have like chicken fajitas with a lot of sour cream and cheese on it. And then I would have like, steaks, with hollandaise sauce on it and things like that. And I wasn't exercising regularly, and I was starting to gain a little weight. It was starting to come on. And so I said, no, I'm not going to accept this prescription drug. So I kind of refused it and said I was going to, try to take better care of myself. And so around the time I learned about the work of Dr. Dean Ornish, who is kind of arguably the godfather of lifestyle medicine, and he conducted a clinical trial which showed that you can reverse heart disease without medication by adopting a whole food, plant-based vegan diet, along with some other lifestyle techniques. And so he showed, with evidence that you can actually do this. And when I looked at it more closely, and I was like, whole plant foods, what does that mean? So it's the food groups are vegetables, fruits, whole grains, legumes like beans, peas, lentils, nuts and seeds, herbs and spices, and mushrooms, of course. And eating a variety of those foods can help you to basically reverse your heart disease. And I can remember thinking at the time, oh, I could never live without, cheese or this or that or the other. And I said, I'm not quite ready for that. Let me see what the next best thing is. So I went to the government and kind of looked at the guidelines for the government, and they were saying things like, oh, replace your beef with poultry, and choose low-fat dairy, and have 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day, and da 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 da. And so I did that, and my cholesterol went from horrible to borderline bad and stayed there for about 5 years. And I remember I was in my kind of like late 30s, early 40s when I started feeling fatigued all the time. I wasn't, even though I was eating quote unquote the government recommended, dietary guidelines, I wasn't feeling good. The weight was still coming on. The cholesterol was still a problem. And so I started experimenting with some cleanses. A friend of mine kind of tipped me off with this lemonade diet thing, which is basically, or the master cleanse, which is a concoction of like lemon juice, maple syrup, cayenne pepper, and something else. And so you just supposed to drink that for like 10 days. And I lasted like for 5 days. That was the most I was able to withstand it. And then the protocol was, when you're coming off of that cleanse, you're supposed to just have vegetable broth and raw vegetables and fruits for a couple days before you go back to your quote unquote healthy diet. So I had done that a few times, and I noticed after a few times that I felt best not during the cleanse, not with what I was normally eating, but I felt best when I was in that transition period of coming off of the cleanse and going back to my diet. It was that window of around 2 to 3 days. And so I said, there's something to this, and I reflected, and I had in the back of my mind the information that I had learned about Dr. Ornish before, in reversing heart disease. Well, this was in a place where it was more of a physical, I was, suffering on the inside as far as my arteries go, but I was also feeling bad. I had no mental clarity. I didn't, I wasn't able to, keep my energy levels at where they used to be, back when I was younger. And so I ended up in January 2012, I decided that I was going to, part of my New Year's resolution, I would go vegetarian. And the way I did that was, I said I was going to eat vegetarian like twice a week, then 3 times a week, and then just gradually increase it. Now, keep in mind, this was at a time when I was still saying I can't live without cheese. So that's why I chose vegetarian. I was like, okay, I could still have cheese and some eggs, and I could live with that. That was where my head was at. And in June of 2012, I was, hey, I'm full vegetarian. I was like practically shouting it from the mountaintop. And I was vegetarian for about a month. And then one weekend in July, I watched 2 documentaries back to back. One was called Forks Over Knives, which talks about the health aspects of adopting a whole food, plant-based vegan diet. And another documentary called Earthlings, which gets into more around the animal rights issue. And it was after watching those 2 documentaries, I walked into the kitchen and I said, honey, to my husband, I said, Kevin, honey, I'm going vegan. And he was like, okay, I'll do it with you. And so that's when the switch happened. And after that, my life changed so much, like on every level. I started bike racing at the age of 42. I'm 50, I'll be 51 in a couple weeks, and I'm still bike racing. I've never been as fit as I am today. Like, this has been like 10 years since I've, transitioned. And, I'm in the best shape of my life, still not on any medications, still high energy. And the other thing that happened to me, and I've heard this from other people, is this whole mental and spiritual clarity thing, that I got and other people have also received just by changing what was on the end of their fork. The other thing that happened to me was I was in a corporate career for 22 years, working in aerospace. And I decided to leave that and go back to school to get a master's in nutrition sciences. And that then catapulted me into a completely different career path, which is what brings me here with you today. So, like I said earlier, I've dedicated my life to helping others take control of their health as well, and cracking the code that I, along with Sersie, have done. So.
Oh, amazing, amazing story. I like how you explain your transition from being a vegetarian to the vegan lifestyle and the differences that you saw there. And even how you talk about the cleanses as well, because I know some people think that, I'll do the cleanse and it'll help to kind of jumpstart, the weight loss or jumpstart the healthy living. And then they always do recommend you start slowly transitioning back to your normal diet. But what good is it if you're just going to transition back to your normal diet?
You're just going to be doing cleanses all the time. I know.
I never quite understood that piece.
Yeah. Yeah, I know for me, it was just a sense of denial that I didn't want to give up certain foods because I thought the quality of my life would go down if I stopped eating certain foods. And in hindsight, what happened was as soon as I stopped eating those foods and committed to it, the quality of my life increased like exponentially. Like I could have never imagined, bike racing and all the people that I've met, the places I've traveled to, the events that I've participated in. I mean, I would say that my best life has been since I made that decision and committed to it.
Awesome. Well, kudos and congratulations on that. Just that lifestyle change. That's something I've been talking about this week with individuals on my platform. It's just been about making lifestyle changes and how do you make them? You have to decide that you want to make the choice, first of all, to do it and that you're going to stick with it. That's the hardest part because we often say, oh, we want to do this, we want to do that. But eventually, that excitement kind of fizzles out. And so just sticking with it until you come over to the other side is the hardest battle. So congratulations on that. And thank you for doing it as well and sharing with us. Absolutely. All right, Sersie, I know you have an interesting story. Let's hear it.
Yeah, my story started similarly to Gigi's, where I had a little bit of a health scare. But in my last trimester of my pregnancy, I was actually diagnosed with high blood pressure. And so at the time, I wasn't necessarily really alarmed because my mom had high blood pressure, my grandmother had high blood pressure. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just take, medication and everything will be fine. But what I didn't know then that I know now is that women who have high blood pressure during their pregnancy are at a higher risk for complications before, during delivery or post, or after. And that's even higher for African American women. And so when I actually was in delivery with my son, I actually had a complication, and my son lost oxygen to his brain. And so he had a lot of complications where he had to have 24-hour care and things like that. And so he ended up passing away a little bit after his first birthday. And so you could imagine the devastation for myself, for my family. I think it was the darkest point of my life. I think just even emotionally, spiritually, even physically, because a lot of times you could self-medicate with food, and I think I had gained the most weight, and so there was a lot of grief and I guess even just a lot of heaviness in that season of my life. And so how my story pivots is a friend of mine, just randomly out of the blue, said to me, "Hey, I'm going to be doing the Daniel fast. Did you want to jump in with me?" And like we discussed before, I've done the Daniel fast before at church, where you do it for 21 days and then you go back to your regular eating. And I remember, kind of tweaking the Daniel fast to my liking. Sometimes I might add this. I don't think I've ever done it really perfectly back in those days. And so I said to my girlfriend, I said, "You know what? I'll do the Daniel fast, but I'm going to add eggs and I'm going to add cheese." I was trying to make it like a vegetarian version of sorts. And so I remember her just arresting me right on that spot. She said, "Listen, if you're going to do this Daniel fast with me, you're going to have to do it exactly the way it's designed." And for some reason, now I probably know why, it was like, it just connected with me. I was like, okay, I'm going to do it exactly the way it's designed. It was just almost like it was my moment. I just felt compelled and convicted to do this. And so I went ahead, and did the Daniel fast to the T. And within, I don't can't even tell you if it was 3 weeks or 4 weeks, but my blood pressure was regulated. I lost the weight. I had mental and spiritual clarity. My emotions, I could, I felt joyful. It was almost like there was like blinders that were lifted and I could see clearly. And so it was such a miraculous transformation that it baffled me, because I said to myself, what just happened? I just did the Daniel fast and I've done, and and the thing is, with this whole situation I was going through in my life, I was trying to exercise. I had family support. I had a good network of family, friends, church, prayer. So there was not like I was void of resources. But as soon as I did this Daniel fast, it's like the top blew off everything, and then all of a sudden the synergy of everything just melded, because here I was eating the whole food plant-based diet, which we discussed earlier. I was doing my devotionals, I was praying. So there was all of the things I was doing before all got interconnected. I had more energy to exercise. I was losing the weight. My depression was gone. And so I said, was I an anomaly, or was this just a miracle that opened from the heavens? Like, I just needed to know what happened here. And so I went on this journey of I'm doing a lot of research, and I ended up finding a lot of the research that Gigi talked about in her story, where a plant-based diet is the only diet scientifically proven to reverse heart disease, and not only heart disease, but help with high blood pressure and type 2 diabetes and obesity, and cancer, and you name it. A plant-based diet was a perfect remedy for these situations. The one diet, you didn't have to mix it up any differently. It was just the one diet that was just going across the board for all these chronic health issues. And then I started to look closer into the Bible and I said, wait, wait a minute. Was Daniel doing the Daniel fast in honor of his name for 10 days and then going back and eating the king's diet? Or was this his lifestyle? And so I started to put connections together in terms of helping people connect their faith to their food, as Daniel did in the Bible, as to make this way of eating a lifestyle. I know a lot of people who do the Daniel fast say, you know what, I feel so great. I have so much energy. And then, like we talked about, they just go back to their old way of eating and say, okay, Daniel fast, I'll see you next January, and just throw all of those benefits completely out of the window. And so I felt convicted and compassionate to kind of realize that it's about us being a Daniel in our modern day time and refusing the King's diet, which probably is the standard American diet today, and making healthy living a lifestyle. And so I dedicated my life to helping people make those connections between their faith and their health, and realizing that I was a better version of myself in terms of fulfilling my purpose and showing up as a mom and a wife and a friend and a cousin, and a sister, because I changed what was at the end of my fork. And so there was a connection between my living out my purpose and me actually being healthy to do so. And so this is why we are absolutely so passionate about people making those two connections of being healthy for their purpose.
I absolutely love that story. Thank you so much again for sharing. You both have amazing stories, but I really loved how you tied in, after the fast was over
Mhm.
and just
Mhm.
feeling so much better and tying in that spiritual connection.
Mhm.
Because we do, if you've done the Daniel's fast or if you've done any type of fast,
Mhm.
like we mentioned before, you tend to go back to your lifestyle.
Mhm.
And if you feel so much better, if whatever
Mhm.
reason that you started it in the beginning was valid enough to want to give this a try, why not commit to something long term? So I love how that just kind of resonated with you
Mhm.
during your fast. So, talk to us a little bit about your program and how you guys formulated your program, what it entails, how do people get involved with it.
Mhm. Yeah, we we have a boot camp. It's a Healthy Christian Women's Boot Camp that we offer a couple times a year, and there is a wait list that you can sign up for at healthyformypurpose.com. And the reason for the whole healthy for my purpose, as Sersie explained, is that we believe that God has a divine purpose for everyone. And that in order for you to live that out at the highest frequency, and for the duration, because so many lives are cut short because of chronic diseases, but to live your life out for the full duration, he needs you healthy. And so our program is built around that. And I will say that some people go into the program knowing their divine purpose already, and it's very crystal clear to them why they need to get healthy. But I'll just say, even from my own personal experience, I didn't know my divine purpose until I got healthy. So I
Mhm.
had to get healthy first to then figure out my divine purpose, because it was through eating like Daniel that gave me the mental and spiritual clarity to not just pray, but also hear what God had to say to me and for my life. And so I would just encourage for anyone that's listening or watching that if you're crystal clear on your divine purpose, then you go ahead and sign up for get on the wait list for the boot camp. Men are also welcomed. I know it's called Healthy Christian Woman, but we're happy to have some men join us as well. Um, and sign up for that, because the thing is that if your purpose is to be a teacher, or a lawyer, or whatever your purpose is, in order for you to be the best that you can be over the long haul, you have to be healthy. You can't be riddled with disease. You can't be riddled with side effects from medications, being bogged down by having to go to the doctors all the time for treatments and tests and scans and all that stuff, and dialysis. Oh my word. And so
Mhm.
you have to, that's pretty crystal clear. Now, if you are like I was, where I did not know my divine purpose,
Mhm.
I was in a corporate career and I was doing my thing, but I was also in the back of my mind saying, is this what my life is about? Like, is this why I was put here? And starting to
Mhm.
question that. Okay, if you're in that space, like I
Mhm.
was, get healthy. Get healthy.
Mhm.
Experience, what it's like to rid your body of those toxic
Mhm.
foods and
Yeah.
eat nourishing, restorative, whole plant foods, and get that mental and spiritual clarity, build that relationship with God, do that prayer work, and then listen. Be quiet and listen, and it will be revealed to you. And as it was for me. And
Mhm.
so regardless of where you're at in terms of that divine purpose, the boot camp, the next one starts in January, but we have a wait list at healthyformypurpose.com, and it gives you a flavor of what you can expect in the 4-week course. Now, if you're listening to this and you're like, hey, I just want to sign up for the course right now, you absolutely can. And we do go live 3 times a year. But during those 3 times, it's actually a total of 15 times throughout the year, because we have like a very organized, structured approach to those 3 times a year, where we do group coaching on a weekly basis over the course of about 5 weeks. And that's where you go through all the content that includes a combination of both spiritual lectures and whole food plant-based nutrition education, so that you learn how to go about this in a way that is sustainable over the long term. So we cover things like why your purpose is connected to your health. We talk about macronutrients, micronutrients, fiber and gut health. And we cover the gamut, including supplementation, that your faith is greater than your appetite. So we get into things like emotional eating. And it's all about having God a part of this health journey, because that is when you ground that. And Sersie said this at the beginning, that when you get your why grounded, you are less likely to you won't. I mean, if your why is really grounded, you won't. Okay, you won't be kind of coming on and going off and coming on and going off. It's not going to be like that cleanse experience I described with myself earlier. You're going to be committed. And, for Sersie and I, it's been about 10 years that we've been doing this. So I would say it's pretty much a part of our lifestyle at this point. It's been a decade. So, yeah. It does that grounding your why and inviting God into your health journey is such a key part of getting off that yo-yo train.
Yeah. And that's why we're so passionate, Alicia, about, we believe that people should do the Daniel fast once. This idea of having like 15 Daniel fasts under your belt. Our goal is to have people do it for the last time and transition into not only just doing the Daniel fast in January, but doing it all throughout the year. And so when we developed the Healthy Christian Bootcamp, we did it in mind to kind of attack some of the common areas that would hold people back from making that long-term commitment. And so it's over 5 days. On the first day, we talk about developing a God-centered self-image, because we know that a lot of times we're fighting a diet culture and this culture, but how about if we brought a God-centered self-image into how we perceive our health? Day 2, we talk about breaking our addiction to food, because a lot of times we're in a situation where we're not really facing that. Why is it that I am choosing, a burger over getting over my diabetes? Like, none of it makes any sense, because the truth of the matter is, underneath all of that, we are addicted to some of these foods that we're eating. On the third day, we talk about, I know I talked to you that my mom had high blood pressure, and so did my grandmother. We talk about breaking generational patterns of poor health, because I think a lot of times people get locked into a thinking that I'm just destined to have diabetes. I'm destined to have high blood pressure. I'm destined to have cancer because it runs in my family, and not understanding that it's not the disease that runs in your family, but it's the lifestyle. It's the same recipes and the same certain things like that. And so that's day 3. And then day 4, we talk about getting the courage to take action. Because like you said, Alicia, it's one thing to know what to do, but it's another thing to actually take action. And so day 4 is all about inviting God into that space so that he can empower you to take that action. And then the last day, day 5, is your health is your wealth. I know that's a common buzzword going around, but really when you're unhealthy, it affects the bottom line. It affects your pocket. It affects the generational wealth. All of those layers that come into that when we're not healthy, and how we get locked into a medical system and bills and, losing work time. And so there's a lot of other things that we lose when we're also unhealthy. And so we unpack that on day 5. And so it's a really robust way, because it breaks down the common barriers in those 5 days and prepares people to be psychologically, spiritually, and emotionally ready to take our 4-week program, which walks them through everything they need to know to make this a long-term lifestyle with our support.
Mm-hmm. Love all of that. Absolutely love it. I think it's definitely something that has not been practiced or even taught in our communities or even in and so, as you mentioned, just the emotional side of it. Your health is your wealth. How are you expecting to be this dynamic leader, and your body is failing you? So it's definitely, something that you need to take control of. And it's a faith walk as well, because if you don't have faith to be able to be consistent and to want to fix your body physically and mentally, then how can you get to the next level and continue to inspire and uplift others? So love everything about it. The question that I'm sure people are out there wondering is, what if you're fearful? What if you have a favorite food, maybe bacon or whatever it may be, and you're just fearful of letting it go? What would you say to someone who is kind of on the fence about transitioning to a vegan lifestyle?
Yeah, I'll go first, and Gigi will talk about how you can turn some of your common foods into, foods that are familiar to you. But I would say, and this is why we really are promoting the 4-week course, because what happens is a lot of times fear is based on the unknown, and a lot of times we only know what we feel like eating those toxic foods, so we don't know what it feels like. What do I feel like when I take all those toxic foods out of my body and I just eat whole plant foods? And for me, in my experience, I didn't know I was missing anything until I did it. And so this is why we tell people that, and this is why we talk about a lot in day 4 is the courage to take action, is that you have to give yourself a chance to see what it feels like to be totally healthy. Because once you get that feeling, then that feeling of feeling energized, emotional and spiritual clarity, all of the good stuff, getting off my medication. And then now you're saying, well, I really love this bacon. All of a sudden now you have something to compare. And so nothing feels as good or tastes as good as healthy feels. And so you start to move into that space where now you're developing a new baseline on how you feel, and you don't want to give that up. Whereas before, you didn't have a baseline. So you were just going off of what tastes good, what makes me feel good emotionally, because let's face it, a lot of these foods, it gives us a high in the moment, or it fills that void in that moment. But what if you had a different way? And so this is why we encourage everyone to don't sell yourself short. Give yourself a chance to feel what it feels like when you don't have those foods in your body. But, and I'll let Gigi talk to this, it doesn't mean, because I thought this, I said, you know what, now that I'm going plant-based, it's over. I'm not going to eat well. I just have to, I'm just going to take one for the team in the name of health. But what I discovered was I actually eat better now than I ate before. Because what I was eating the same old stuff. Your chicken, your rice, your this, your that. But now I'm eating so much a variety of foods and flavors and spices, and that I'm eating better now than I ever ate when I was so-called eating what I thought was the best thing. But the difference was I didn't know there was this other world out there. And so it's kind of like the Matrix. You got to take the right pill and enter into that, that sphere that's going to open a whole world that you had no idea existed. So it takes a leap of faith. And this is why we say we need to invite God into our health journey. So many of us are doing our health journey on our own, but the minute you invite God into this space, he will give you the courage to take action.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll just say, it's interesting because I actually had this conversation with someone that came to my house this morning, and and kind of what I mentioned to him was, because he was saying, okay, well, I don't know if I can live without, whatever he was, eggs and something else. And I said, well, this is a young man who's in his like mid-20s, and he was helping me with the sprinkler system. And I said, I think you're going to get to a point, because a lot of us do, where you're going to have to grapple with the question of, am I living to eat, or am I eating to live? And so I think once you kind of look at that question wholeheartedly and say, do I want to, am I just living to eat? I mean, is that what my life is about, is just to eat? Or do I want to eat to live and live a full life? And if you're honest with yourself, I think most people are going to say they want to eat to live, not live to eat. And once you kind of wrestle with that question first, then it becomes, well, how do I do this? And like Sersie said, you need a basis to compare. And that's why our program is so powerful, because it takes that moderation off the table and gives you a good comparison. And then what we do is we help you find close replacements to your favorite foods. So if you were someone that, I mentioned fajitas before, and there are plenty of whole food plant-based fajita options. We actually have a recipe website called danielsplate.com, and it is loaded with whole food plant-based recipes. We've got a portobello steak, which is a replacement for a beef steak. It's made with a portobello mushroom. We've got a wonderful taco salad with this walnut taco meat that is absolutely like heavenly. I mean, it tastes amazing. And you can use it for tacos, or you could use it in a salad, as a taco salad. So then it becomes, kind of thinking about what you normally would eat, and then finding an equivalent whole food plant-based alternative for that, that's going to nourish your body, that's going to help you to lose weight, help you to lower your A1C, help you to lower your blood pressure and your cholesterol, put you in a better position to prevent the cancer diagnosis that maybe a relative had gotten around the age that you're at now. And so it's very powerful in that regard. And then Sersie mentioned all of this is underpinned by the fact that you're inviting God into your health journey to help you through it. So you've got the support from Sersie and I in the group, and you've got recipes, and you've got God, and you've got your journal, and you've got your prayer, where you're spending time with God in that space. And all kinds of magic happens when you do that, when you put all those things together. So we've had some really good success stories in our program, and super excited about what we're doing and how we're helping other people of faith.
All right. Awesome stuff. I love it. And I just want to thank you guys once again for just sharing with us, teaching us something new. This has definitely been an eye opener for me. It's been a moment of enlightenment. And you've heard the saying, when you know better, you do better. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping that others will, be encouraged, and they will want to learn more about this program. Can you tell us again where we can find you all at?
Yeah, healthyformypurpose.com. You can go to that website. There's a place where you can subscribe and get on our email list. You could also join the boot camp wait list, which is something I would definitely encourage everyone to do. So get on the wait list, and we'll let you know when we're ramping up for that. And it's very powerful. A lot of times, the feedback we've gotten from people who've gone through it is their mind has been blown, by some of the things, looking at things differently, which can make, could be that difference between, failed attempts in the past to finally making that change and making it last. So, yeah.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'll make sure to put the link to the website in the comments as well. Again, Gigi and Sersie, this has been phenomenal information, and I'm praying that others will find that it's useful as well, and give you guys